was like, that was in the book. I didn't even read it. I was like, I'll put this name there.
I am only Batman.
I don't know what she's saying. I'm just telling you.
Probably not Batman.
Then she goes, how's Batman? I'm like, fine. Who's Batman?
I was wearing Green Lantern.
My favourite class
Reminds me of the
performance
movies.
day. This is adorable.
I'm Batman.
Right. So, can you start recording?
Yeah, Salih.
Is it already
Yeah,
recording?
yeah.
Oh. Hi, Mom. Hi, Dad.
Do you want the PowerPoint presentation in the...
It's not a big deal. They can just
Okay.
see me make a fool of it. That's the big deal. Alright. So today, my topic is identify and discuss a recent incident of racism, discrimination against Indigenous Australia, presented by Xander, the Dag Salih, also known as Mr. HG, JK LOLZ. So this topic was really depressing. Anyways, so I'm going to start off with a question. What is racism? Any ideas or examples, but can someone give like what it is, a definition? Anyone? Someone please think of.
Well,
You.
when you're, like, obviously have discriminatory views against a particular race.
Alright, that's pretty good. Anyone else? Slightly different? Alright. Well, the problem is racism is technically not defined in a specific sense. It is still a contested term even amongst academics. I'm going to go through some of them in a second, but so scholars and politicians tend to bend this term for their social political advantage, which is why we have so many issues. So these are the different types of racism. You've got institutional, which would be like government, not just the person-to-person institution. You've got school, stuff like that. Individual social, so if someone said something racist, someone did something racist. You've got colorblind racism, which we've talked about before. So does anyone have an example? No? Quiet today. Gonna let Xander do it? Alright. Well, that's not, yeah, that's right. Okay, so here are the extreme views, which is what causes issue amongst why the racism is a contested term. This isn't what institutional racism is. This is like an extremist person. Only white Australian Americans can be racist. This isn't helpful because then this neglects all the specific incidences of racism, where people, like individuals, are being racist to each other. But then you've got the individual racism, where people like are hatching at each other. And then the extremist view of that is they're blind to the institutional racism. So the problem is they're not using both terms. They're trying to focus in, they're trying to be specific so they can get away with being racist or ignoring problems, etc. So what do we define as racism? And I've said it's up to you. It depends what your aims are for the, with the definition. So I would hope, like your definition seems a bit more vague to be inclusive, because politicians like to be nitpicky and such. My friend came up with this yesterday, and I thought it was great. A multifactorial social disorder of uneducated, small-minded individuals. It was just pretty great. So. And then colorblind racism is typically more subtle. I hope you get that joke. There are no gingers or Asians in that. Oh, and then there's like all white people. Yeah, that too. So don't be racist. Be like Mario. Italian, Japanese speaks English. There is a point to this, especially Andy. So where is racism found in what form? Well, you've got your media, your government, your jokes, your education, your health, and your criminology. Criminology is fun, guys. And examples would be over and underrepresentation in the media, racial policies like the Northern Territory that we've talked about. Oh, that was such a good performance. Right? The jokes, the Mario picture I've just put up. Education, tied with the government, marginalization, and then you've got the help. Don't get me started. And then criminology, which is tied with media. There's skewed academic statistics as well. And then there's a lot of false accusations, which are recorded and then they don't go back and fix it in the statistics. And tons more other stuff. So media over and underrepresents certain aspects of what really happens. Likewise, the statistics are not as accurate as you might think with criminology. Even though it's an academic source, we've learned in my criminology course, you shouldn't trust all the statistics. You should always question, look at it in context where it comes from. So I got this I've got one article that was from this organization called Braveheart. They seem like a pretty good organization, so I don't want to like label the whole organization as bad. But this one particular research article was talking about the child sexual assault facts and statistics, and it used, okay, so it actually said Aboriginal children are more often raped or sexually abused. And when I looked at where the citing was, it had citations throughout the research essay or article, but the problem is like when it got to that point, didn't directly reference right there. It referenced like before and after, but didn't. So it just sort of threw it in there. And the article wasn't actually focused on, it was focused on child sexual assault in general, but it didn't focus, it just included like a subsection about Indigenous people. And I was like, oh, that's great, you included them in the worst way possible. So it did state that there is double the non-Indigenous people, yet doesn't completely cite. And it makes note of underreporting, but it specifically said, and the thing is, Aboriginal children, if they're sexually assaulted, they're not gonna, it's underreported, so it's so much higher. Now this is true with underreporting, but it neglected to say that for non-Indigenous people. And any person with half a brain, and like all the articles out there, underreporting isn't a racial issue. That's a general issue. So, and it also didn't provide where this report was taken, which is why it didn't seem like a very good argument, because you've got like, I mean, one, they could have picked an area that was higher concentrated with Aboriginal people. Well, in that case, the percentages are going to be higher. But at the same time, they could have taken it like scatter plotted from, it didn't like give any information like, where are you getting these statistics? So it didn't cite very well that. Yet it was under an academic source. So percentage gaps, this is a different issue. The last one was more to do with, this is like representation. And as of June 2010, the prison population was approximately that number, while representing approximately 2.5 of the Australian population total. Australia's Indigenous population represents almost 26% of the population. So there's a huge, like, mass number of Indigenous people in prison, and this overrepresentation is a problem. And there's also Indigenous juveniles are 28 more times likely than non-Indigenous juveniles to be detained by a juvenile justice centre. So a really simplistic person would be like, well, they cause crimes, right? They're bad. Mudbloods, which is the Harry Potter term, muggles, whatever. You know, like something bad, they'll say. And it's just like, I can't believe I just put Harry Potter in there. Real criminologist will look at that and is like, why is that happening? Because you're not really providing a good argument. Well, it's caused by a string of false confessions and various reasons such as the court system. So here's some crime statistics. This was the most recent thing I could find in this area. So Indigenous and non-Indigenous homicides, Indigenous people are like 7 times more likely. It has gone down, but I couldn't find specific statistics on the Australian criminology database. So, but then when you've got trends in prison custody deaths, oh look, they're equal. So it's nice to know that we treat our people in prison near enough the same, except for the spike in 1995. How does this relate to specific instances? Well, we've got this documentary that we watched in my criminology 2, for the criminology 2, and they talk to Indigenous kids ages like 14 to 17 about what their experiences are. So without anyone there, well, except for the person interviewing, putting their input. And there is a case, so this guy I know I was age 17, he was put on home detention for assault. When the case was observed, like after he got charged, because this always happens, they get charged and then, oh, now we're going to look into it. He did hit an older man for beating someone to the ground, right? So the fight ensued, which led to the assault charge. Thank God, and they were saying, thank God he's 17, because if he was older, jail time, you know. The problem with this is, I know there's like, you've got a different law about, in Australia, about like what you can do back to someone for self-defense. It's got to be like equal, as opposed to the States where like if someone breaks into your house, you're allowed to shoot away. So there is that plays a role. But this guy hit someone to get someone off of someone else. Straight away, it's like, oh, you've assaulted someone. right? Done, right? He's a real nice kid if you watched it, by the way. The guy that was beating someone, that took a couple months to process. There's a couple things that play a factor in that. You've got the fact that some of the people in these areas might not have as much money, so they can't afford a good lawyer. That's the really simple answer. You can also take the side that the court really rushed that one through, which is actually a trend. Aboriginal women retract, these are recent stuff, this is 2012, 2013. Aboriginal women retract abuse statements, and they were sentenced to jail solely on the basis of the retraction of an allegation of domestic violence. So there's about, in this specific case, there was about 15 Indigenous women who had claimed someone had sexually assaulted them, abused them, raped them, etc. And as the court's trials, the questioning started, they retracted this statement. Now, it is well known that when someone is sexually abused, assaulted, etc., there's even a rule, like, I don't know about here, but like you can't have the person that they accused in the same room when because the trauma that is coming with that. And so you do find, with women in general, or anyone that's been abused, that they retract their statements. And usually what happens is you retract your statement and there's a little more investigation into it, because it's like, why would you make this huge claim, which has serious implication, and just retract it? And not even say like, oh, I lied, which in some cases happened until further investigation, but they just retract it. So then really quickly, these sexual abuse trials, which a lot of evidence was provided, took forever to process, some of which didn't get done. They retracted the statement. Oh, really quickly they were put in jail in like less than a month's time because of causing, it wasn't public disturbance, but like causing a fuss with the court's decision, basically lying and making sense. But no, well, not on the court's part anyway, didn't think, oh, why did they retract their statements? It took forever. So again, you see the court system you can't directly link it to racism because unfortunately they never say the word. But when you look at the differences between these scenarios and some of the other scenarios, you see it's not typically what happens. And sometimes this happens to other people, but tends to not. Wrongly accused man to sue Queensland government. Now this actually happened a while ago in 1993, but it carried on until 2012. I found 2 articles on it. So there's this guy, Terry Irving, he's an Aboriginal man, and he was suspected of armed robbery. Now the suspicion was granted because what had happened was he had loaned his car to some guy, like some acquaintance from the pub, someone in his area, like a friend, and in that car, I don't know if it was used by the guy he loaned it to, it didn't specify. Later, it was used in a robbery. So it's like, wow, it's your car. And they never found the money on him. They never found the car on him because he had his car was missing for a couple months. Because he reported it as missing because he never got it back and he never saw the person again. It was really weird. But based on that evidence alone, that your car, we got like a snapshot of the license plate, was used in the armed robbery. We know this is your car because we've looked it up. There's no other explanation. Like, what happened to innocent until proven guilty? I hope that's something over here. Quickly thrown into jail. He was in jail for almost 5 years, right? And usually, luckily he eventually got out. I say luckily, it's kind of, and he did say that he's patient and he wanted to speak out against this because he made a statement like it's wrecked his family. He's missed 5 years with his family. He's not got a job because like you're in jail. You're set back on all your bills. Like all these different. Usually, if you've been wrongfully imprisoned, you get an ex gratia payment. You don't always get it automatically. He didn't get anything. And so I think the statement made by one of the attorneys or whatever was, that was on the premise that if he wanted it, he would have to sue for it. And in that same statement somewhere, the guy had admitted, like his quotation admits to them making a mistake. So it's not like you have to sue and prove that they've messed up. They've admitted to messing up, but why do you still have to sue for the payment? that you rightfully deserve. I kept looking into it to see, I wanted to know what happened. I couldn't find any academic sources on what happened after 2012. The only thing I found, which I wouldn't put in here except it was the only thing I found, was on Wikipedia, which was the last place I looked for this. It said there's just no news current standing and it seems like nothing's happened with it. So, it took till 2011, which is almost 20 years after, for him to start suing for it. Right? 5 years jail with no evidence. Aboriginal men did not assault police. Oh God, that's such a crime, not assaulting police, right? What had happened was there was these three guys in the street. One of them was an Aboriginal man. His name was Corey Barker, right? And he was stopping two friends from fighting. And I think the description later was literally he was doing that. He just had his hands out between the two people. There were police there, intervened, tried to stop the fight. They saw Corey Barker. They told Corey Barker to get away from the incident, they're fighting, so he did. Then he started getting questioned by the police, and then when he was telling them that he wasn't involved, he was just stopping them because he saw two people fighting. The police need him like somewhere in this region, which is like a police tactic when someone's giving you trouble, like you need them, they go down and then you can take them out. It wasn't really called for though. On top of that, they then arrested him because he failed to get up to speak with them and go to the call for more questioning. So you need him in someplace that hurts, you know, and then expect him to get up straight away. So what happened was the police statements, because when a crime incident happens, you have like all the some of the witnesses like write the incident of what happens, and you also have, so in this case the police would have to write what happens, and each person does it individually, right? So you don't have people collaborating. Well, later down the line, not straight away, the police had very similar like statements on their individual accounts. Now, if the same thing happened, right, you're gonna have similarities. But it was almost scripted. Like, you know, if like 8 things happen, this one person might say 6 things, this person might say 5 things, this person might just remember the 2 main things. It was all like, they did this, then this happened, then this happened. All 506, I think it was 5 total police officers. So they were later questioned, and he said, oh, it was taught to me by the person that trained me when I was being a cop, which wasn't that long ago, that we were supposed to collaborate on what we were writing so we have our facts straight. No, you're not supposed to do that. So then, as he was getting questioned in the court later, because Corey Barker was already arrested, it turned into, he wasn't actually causing a fuss. Oh, and he was accused of throwing a punch, which later was just like, oh, upon the footage, you could plainly see he didn't throw a punch. Said, no, I guess he didn't, I just didn't recall it correctly. Which, don't get me wrong, if there's a huge pub fight, yeah, but come on. All 5 police officers said the same thing, retracted their statement. None of them got in trouble for it. None of them, well, as far as at the end of 2013, because there's no current 2014 on it. So maybe they got fired by the police department, but there was no like court taking action because there was nothing said like, oh yeah, I totally did it because I was racist, or yeah, I just didn't like him because he was Aboriginal. There was a statement that said, I assume because he was with like the other black people, like I think it was darker skinned people. So we've got a little more careful with his word choice, but still. I said, yeah, I guess I messed up. I guess I didn't mean to do it. Sorry. Like, and this was quoted. It was really like nonchalant. So what I'm saying is they were really quick to throw Corey Barker into prison, or arrest him, throw him into jail. Even though there's footage that shows that he didn't do it. Even though, and it's just disgusting. There's all this evidence that proves against it. Oh, I was like, oh, you're accused of something? Like with the Northern Territory. Oh, we think that there is a child molestation, let's install this policy. Where's your case? Which shouldn't even be representative of a whole race anyways, but you get my gist. These people are proven to have done something wrong, to have lied. They're under oath, right? This is their job. Either it takes forever to process, or they just get off the hook. So quotes from Mr. Barker, this was at the very end. Mr. Barker told ABC this month he was determined to seek justice. He also would like an apology. I thought this was really classy of him. So it would show their integrity for them to realize that they have done wrong, and they did try to jeopardize my life, my career, my family's life, Mr. Barker told the ABC. Yes, it would mean a lot. I think that's the ABC person. Despite this, Mr. Barker is getting on with his life, and he said, I had no other choice. I had just started a beautiful career in the construction industry, and I had brothers finishing school and graduating, and just so much of my life happening that I couldn't afford to lose over something I didn't do. I was going to lose that if I just took it on the chin. I was going to lose all those opportunities that I had been handed to me and that I had worked so hard to achieve. Now, I think that's great of him because he's turning them a cheek, which is, how do I put this? How great of it is of him that he can still be happy when someone's been such a twat, right? At the same time, it's a bit shameful that other people in the court system and in places of power aren't holding these people accountable, these cops. So the trends in all these are, you've got, like I said, a really quick action, assuming the worst when it comes to Aboriginal and Indigenous peoples, but really slower processing despite the majority of evidence when the victim, I should say, isn't. Or sorry, when the victim is Aboriginal and Indigenous, it's really slow, especially if the offender or the accuser isn't Aboriginal or Indigenous. And so at the end of all these articles, you see a lot of people either putting their input or the person involved, people involved saying that they have a loss of faith in the police, the government, and the courts, etc. And there's a lack of justice and safety. So this is my point. When we have criminology statistics where they say, oh, there's higher rates, well, sometimes they're not even representative, but sometimes you've got to ask the question, why? Because false accusation, like, you Google this on regular Google or Google Scholar, it comes up like a crap ton. Unlike when you look up specific incidences of assault, that's more actually like the statistics are there, but like where victims are Indigenous, Aboriginal, but there's no specific case, and that's an example of, oh look, media hushity hush, right? There's a ton of stuff of, oh look at what this Indigenous person did. It's really frustrating. So this whole thing kind of synthesizes what we're talking about, representation in the media and yada yada. It causes, this institutionalized racism is directly linked to specific incidences of racism. And I thought, what better specific incidents to choose but false accusation. So here's my bibliography in the end. Is there any questions? All right.
Thank you.